Alright ladies, in this screencast we are going to finish chapter 29, and since we have a quiz tomorrow on chapters 28 and 29, I just ask you to email me by, let's say, 9 p.m. tonight any questions you have about this material so that I could clear it up before your quiz tomorrow. Now, between my two Hush classes, we started and ended the last lesson at different points, and so I'm going to start this screencast with the troop buildup accelerates and start about what happened in the Gulf of Tonkin. And so if you need to fast forward, that's fine, and if we didn't get to this point, which I think we should have, let me know, but if we didn't, then there's only like one other thing we're missing, and anyway, I don't think that's going to be a problem. But okay, so this is the event that is going to lead to our sending massive numbers of troops over into Vietnam. And it's going to happen, or the event that's going to lead us to sending the troops, that first event is going to take place in a body of water called the Gulf of Tonkin. And Tonkin is spelled Tonkin. So, essentially, soon after Johnson is serving his first full year as president, a North Vietnamese patrol boat is going to fire a torpedo at a U.S. ship that was patrolling in the Gulf of Tonkin. Now, the Gulf of Tonkin is located right off the northeastern coast of North Vietnam, and so we are kind of in somewhat enemy territory, being that we don't like the North Vietnamese communist regime, but nonetheless our boat is in their waters, and so it's kind of not surprising, I guess, that North Vietnam would fire a torpedo at our ship. We return fire, and then within a couple of days an event's going to happen, like a similar event's going to happen again. Another one of our ships is supposedly fired upon, so we return fire. And this is going to kind of prompt Johnson to begin a bombing campaign in North Vietnam. So keep in mind, up until this point, we had only been sending military advisors into South Vietnam to help build up the ARVN, who are currently fighting that rebel group, the Vietcong, but now we are also bombing North Vietnam. Now, Johnson will also ask something from Congress. He will ask Congress for permission to take further action in Vietnam to prevent any other sort of force against the U.S. or aggression against the U.S. And Congress is going to reply by passing what is known as the Tonkin Gulf Resolution. So it's a document kind of named after that first initial event that happened in the Gulf of Tonkin. But essentially, what the Tonkin Gulf Resolution did was allow Johnson to use broad military power in Vietnam, allowing him to expand his role in Vietnam, allowing him to take action in Vietnam without actually having to declare war. So this grants Johnson a lot of power that he really should not have. If you know your checks and balances, Congress is supposed to basically approve and acknowledge and sign off on all sort of military war, or any sort of declaration of war or act of war. And I guess they're doing so here, but now Johnson's not going to have to double check with Congress every time he wants to expand our role in Vietnam. He's just going to take direct action as the commander-in-chief, because this Tonkin Gulf Resolution allows him to do so. Okay, So, within a full year, we're going to have closer to 200,000 troops in Vietnam, but that's going to increase greatly because the man you see pictured on the screen is the American military general William Westmoreland, and he is going to request that more and more troops be sent to Vietnam. He is not very impressed with them. Not them, sorry. He's not very impressed with the ARVN, who is the South Vietnamese army that was currently in South Vietnam, and like obviously we were helping and assisting, and he wants U.S. troops now. And Johnson's going to grant that request by sending, by the end of, let's say just by the mid-1960s, the U.S. will have sent over 500,000, which is 500,000 U.S. soldiers to fight in Vietnam. So William Westmoreland is getting his request. And keep in mind, this is all being done because Johnson's granted permission by Congress to expand our role in Vietnam. So it's like, we never actually declare war, but this is where we would say the war has begun in terms of us fighting in this war. Another thing I forgot to mention a second ago is that when Congress granted Johnson these powers, with the Tonkin Gulf Resolution, he's also going to begin bombing North Vietnam heavily. I know I mentioned that we started doing it, but now we're going to increase the bombing raids, and that bombing mission of North Vietnam is known as Operation Rolling Thunder. So try to paint a visual for me here. Vietnam is divided into North and South. The North is communist, the South is not. We support the southern side, but we are fighting a group in the South, which is a rebel group in the South called the Vietcong. At the same time, we are not physically present in North Vietnam, but we are bombing North Vietnam because they are communists and they attacked our ship, and we fear they will one day try to push communism onto South Vietnam. Now that we're officially fighting this war, let's talk about what that looks like. We personally think that we're going to have this in the bag because, especially in South Vietnam, we have more men, superior weapons, greater technology. We've defeated Hitler, we've defeated Japan, we've defeated many nations, and so we don't think this is going to be that difficult, but the enemy has something we do not, and that is home field advantage and knowledge of the jungles of the country of Vietnam. Because of the terrain and because of the style of fighting the Vietcong carry out, which is that guerrilla warfare, we are going to get frustrated very easily because we just don't know how to fight these guys effectively. This is in relation to the fact that we consider the Vietcong an elusive enemy, a hidden, a secretive enemy. They may not have the superior weapons we have, but their style of fighting involving hit and run, ambush tactics, where they are constantly a threat to us because we do not know where they come from, because they hide, they camouflage themselves. They have elaborate tunnel systems, so they can be underground at any point. And then on top of that, they are South Vietnamese citizens, and so they can move in and out of the general population of South Vietnam. We can walk into a village and a person offering drinks to the U.S. soldiers could be a Vietcong agent whose husband is on his way with his friends to launch a surprise ambush of those soldiers. So we have a hard time being able to keep up with these surprise attacks, and we don't really know at any point who is enemy, who is friend, who is foe. And so that gives another advantage to the Vietcong rebellion. Now, we refer to Westmoreland's style of fighting the Viet Cong as a war of attrition. And this is a war strategy in which you destroy your enemy's morale by gradually wearing them down over time. And so we want to gradually beat down the Viet Cong's morale to where eventually they would give up. One way we actually began doing this is after any sort of attack, we would institute body counts, where we would publicly kind of count the number of dead Viet Cong soldiers, maybe leave a marker, announce it, in an effort to gauge how successful the attack was. And we're thinking that the more we do this and the more the Viet Cong lost, that the more they would be likely to surrender. And that's just not the case. The Viet Cong do not and will not surrender. They are determined. They have the passion. They have the goal in which they're fighting for. They will not give up. And this is also very frustrating for the American military forces because they never feel like they're fully making progress. Honestly, we're looking at this war in two different ways between the U.S. military and the Viet Cong. We look at it as just another military conflict, just another war. For the Viet Cong, this is their struggle for survival, to take back their land into officially their control, to gain freedom, to gain independence, to gain a communist government. That is like their mission in life, and we are keeping them from it. They're not going to give up, and we're very misunderstanding of that. Now, one other thing that we have to keep in mind while we are present in Vietnam is the fact that we are also fighting a battle for hearts and minds, because we want to keep the Viet Cong from being able to win the support of the rest of South Vietnam's population. We want South Vietnam to stay true to our cause, to not be tempted to join the rebellion, to not be tempted to enjoy the communist regime. And so we want to win them over, if you will. And as you can see in the pictures, we're not really doing a whole great job with that the whole time we're there, because of some of the action we take on Vietnam's land and agriculture. We take great steps and great efforts to expose the Viet Cong hideouts and tunnel systems and kind of flush them out of hiding. And so two things we start doing. One, we start dropping a weapon called napalm. It's Napalm. Napalm is a gasoline-based bomb that would set fire to jungles and burn down trees and plants in effort to flush your enemy out of hiding and expose tunnel systems. And the U.S. would also spray a chemical that was called Agent Orange, which killed leaves, to also expose any sort of hideouts within the bushes and plants. Now the issue is, one, this could be harmful if any civilian was, caught in a village near one of these fires or affected by the burning of the Agent Orange. But also, they are a rural country, and by using these weapons, we are destroying their agriculture. And we're kind of leaving some of their land in ruins. And so, not always is the battle for hearts and minds going well in South Vietnam. Now, the longer that these American soldiers are in Vietnam, the deeper their morale sinks. Many soldiers are beginning to lose faith in the war. And these are U.S. soldiers. They're tired of the style of fighting. They're tired of fighting an enemy they couldn't see. they're tired of some of the horrific circumstances they're put in, where they are seeing the death of civilians, and sometimes they're responsible for the death of civilians. And, a lot of the soldiers, are enlisted, and we'll talk about the draft in the next chapter, but a lot of them don't want to be there, and they don't really believe in the cause they're fighting for. They are forced to be there, and that's going to change your morale as well and affect how involved you want to be in the war. And for the last bullet, I just want to talk briefly about the early war at home. So, in our early involvement with Johnson, he's obviously handling a lot with the civil rights movement, but as that starts winding down and this becomes more of a prominent focus of public opinion and news, people are starting to turn against our involvement in Vietnam, and it's just beginning right now, and it's going to continue to grow over time. One of the biggest reasons for this is the television, actually. Now that the 50s have come and gone, and many, and maybe even the majority of middle-class American families have access to a television in their home, they are able to see news footage of what is actually taking place in Vietnam for the first time in any war the U.S. has been in. And the footage they see is not what they really enjoy watching, and it turns them off to the war greatly. I would say pretty quickly support for the war becomes like a 50-50, 50% against, 50% for our involvement in the war, but that is about to change in the next couple of chapters. And that is all for now. So please write down any questions you have about this material. That finishes up chapter 29, which is the last of the two chapters on your quiz tomorrow, chapters 28 and 29. I hope you'll have a good day, and let me know if you have any questions by email. Thank you.